What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. Today we're taking the OH-6, my favorite helicopter in DCS, for a little sightseeing tour at dusk around the west side of Berlin. I've marked out the Berlin Wall here in red, and we're going to follow the route in blue, starting from RAF Gateau, and then heading out north towards the Tegel airport, and then joining the Berlin Wall here to the east in the center of Berlin, passing by the Brandenburg Gate and the Reichstag, and then heading further south along beside Templehof, and then further south towards the Mercedes-Benz factory with a right turn, then to recover at a West Berlin base here with a couple of helipads where we'll join another West Germany Huey. Now, I don't think this base actually existed in real life, or somebody can correct me, I could be wrong, but I couldn't find it on Google Maps, and I think maybe it was overgrown by forest by this point. I'm not 100% sure. So the reason I want to do this little tour is I just want to demonstrate the gorgeous scenery around Berlin, and actually just the fact that this map, like I mentioned in my full map review, if you haven't checked it out already, make sure to do so right now, where I cover all the details of this map. And I think this is perhaps the best map to have come out in the realms of DCS in, well, forever, basically. Although we have some other maps with some decent features, this one is much more feature complete. Now, I also want to address, whilst we're flying and sightseeing, a few of the comments for my review of this map, which have popped up regarding some of the inaccuracies, some of the shortcomings that people have been pointing out, etc. So without further ado, let's get into it, and we'll talk on the fly.
We have 2 good engine starts. You're clear to disconnect the headset. We'll see you on the left with the pin. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so we're trimmed for liftoff, feeding in the left pedal, a little bit of left cyclic, a little bit of aft cyclic. Just gently let it come off the ground. And now we can start our little tour, starting here with Gateau, the RAF Gateau base. Here, of course, in West Berlin, which was in the British sector, hence it's a British base. And we're just going to pass over the barracks here, and just pay attention to the cohesion of all the details, which I think really absolutely defines this map. As just, if you just look at how everything is put together, how everything is integrated with, and all the texturing and everything as well for all these roads and car parks and everything, just, in my opinion, there is not a single map that does this well. The Afghanistan map does do a really good job on the areas that are modeled when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I think this map, it just is so cohesive. And I have heard comments about various things like, you know, ammunition depots and whatever being kind of in the wrong place. You know what? I think it looks very believable. You're obviously always going to find things which are, you know, not exactly like real life, as we pass by a period C-130 Hercules here for the RAF. And funnily enough, the RAF actually only flew chipmunks out of this base, as far as I know, at least in later stages. I don't really know why that is, but I'm sure they've had a lot of other military traffic pass through here, of course, because West Berlin is, well, within Berlin, and Berlin itself is completely isolated from West Germany. It's actually in Eastern Germany, so if you were in West Berlin, the only way you could actually get here was either via an air corridor, so you flew over, or you took a military train, or you took a single autobahn from Helmstedt at checkpoint Alpha and exited at West Berlin at checkpoint Bravo, which, by the way, is modeled here. It's just not quite as well as real life, I think, but it's still modeled, and it's still here. It's actually behind us as we now head over these fields and flying the OH-6, my favorite helicopter in DCS world. Of course, this is a mod, which unfortunately was also supposed to be expanded to include the MH6 Little Bird, which a lot of us have been waiting for, but unfortunately the developer, well, it's a mod, but the developers have decided that they are no longer going to do that for a few reasons. Unfortunately, it's just been probably one of the biggest disappointments I've had, because I was so looking forward to the MH6, and unfortunately we're not going to get it. So it is a real shame. But for now, we can still enjoy the OH-6, which of course was never in German service. For those of you, I'm sure somebody's going to point that out in the comments, even though we're flying an OH-6, as we're passing by a field here, and there's some combine harvesters which are animated, got their lights on, still working hard. And I absolutely love the fact that this map includes so many little details, and this is just one of many that we will see on this tour of Berlin as we now head towards Tegel airport, in the northern side of western Berlin. And like I was saying, the OH-6 was of course never used by the German army, but in my hypothetical scenario, it was handed over for test and evaluation, which is why we're using it today. And notice how smooth my FPS is. I mean, this map is so bloody well optimized, and even though, yes, you do get some drops in the middle of Berlin, honestly, it's still freaking amazing. I'm just flabbergasted by how smooth and beautiful it runs. Genuinely, what a great job that they have done on this map. I'm just amazed at how good and cohesive the whole thing is. And I have heard a few things in the comments, a few negative things. Well, one, obviously, if you've seen my previous, or my review, my full review of this map, if you haven't, make sure to check it out at the moment. It'll come up somewhere in the right-hand corner of the screen right now. I have made a lot of references to the Cola map whilst talking about this map, and I think there's a good reason for that, because there's only 2 new green maps that we have had you know, appear in DCS. This is one of them, and they do things very differently, and I have mentioned how bad Cola is at the whole green thing, especially when it comes to all the forested areas, and how good this map is. And I've heard quite a few people in the comments, or I've seen quite a few people in the comments say they disagree with me, or that, you know, being too harsh in Cola, and there's quite a few people defending Cola. I don't really understand why, because this map is on a completely different level. There's some parts of the Cola map which, in isolation, by the way, look how beautiful this is. Oh, and one important feature to note here is that the western Berlin side has white lights, whilst the eastern Berlin and East Germany around it has more yellowy lights for the street lighting and everything. So you can actually tell the difference. So at nighttime, you can actually tell if you've accidentally flown into the wrong side of Berlin, which is quite helpful for us today. I don't know if that was like that in real life, but it's really cool. Again, another attention to detail that they've got here, and you'll also see various little cool things like police cars, or maybe fire engines, or ambulances just kind of driving around with their lights on. Again, just another cool little feature, and everything is just integrated super well with everything. And this is my point about the Cola map, whereby things not only look out of place sometimes, the textures are just terrible. The way the forests are integrated into the terrain is beyond pathetic, in my opinion. I mean, when I did the review for it initially, I said it had a lot of potential. I was expecting to see a lot of really good updates as we're passing over Tegel airport here with the Boeing 727s and a Boeing 747, of course, what is supposed to be a Pan Am, and a lot of late Hansas, or Luftgansas as they call them here on this map. And again, look at the level of detail for everything, all the car parks and everything. It's just super awesome the way it's modeled, and the way the trees and forests are integrated into the terrain is perhaps my absolute favorite thing about this map. I know the color palette, some people have said it's a little bit too bright. I like it. I think it's great that it's lush and green, but I get it. If you think it's a little bit too bright, you can tone it down with a bit of reshade if you want to, which, by the way, I'm using reshade right now. This is off and this is on, off and on, and I like it a lot, you know, but it's fair enough if you think it's a little bit too bright. But overall, the way they have done the vegetation here and the way it's integrated into all the surrounding terrain, it's just absolutely brilliant. Honestly, there's no there's hardly any fields here. You'll notice that if you've ever flown on any of the maps, especially the Syria map, the Sinai map is a real offender for it. You'll see fields, field textures being suddenly cut off randomly and then kind of plonked down in the middle of some other texture around them, and it just looks really strange. Like the fields just don't look like they were integrated well. It just looks like they're cut off halfway through, and you get that with streets as well. Streets just kind of finish and just get cut off randomly in different places. And this map does that so well. There's a tiny bit of that, but I'd say it's almost completely eradicated. The way everything is integrated just feels so believable and so real, as we're approaching the city center of Berlin now, and the Berlin Wall, which runs along this canal here, and of course the famous Berlin TV tower there on Alexanderplatz is just to our 11 o'clock. And you'll notice what's really cool here along the border walls. You'll have the Vopos, or the Volkspolizei, patrolling the area over here, and it's so cool that they've modeled that. Again, it's just another little bit of attention to detail. In fact, there's probably one driving right there. Yep, it's got the lights on, so it's patrolling the death zone of the Berlin Wall. As we now approach the Reichstag, of course, and we'll just do a quick little circle of the Reichstag here, and of course an extremely, famous historical landmark. When I was here, I spent a while just staring at it because I've seen, that photo of the Soviet soldier holding the flag, holding the Soviet flag up, putting it onto the roof of the Reichstag, which I believe is just around this side of the building that we're coming up on now, and of course signifying the Soviet Army's capture of the Reichstag and defeating the German army in Berlin. Very iconic photo, and it's pretty incredible how well they've managed to pull it off here. If you've been to Berlin, honestly, this feels like you're in Berlin. And this, of course, another extremely famous historical landmark, the Brandenburg Gate, which, as you can see, is actually in the middle of the Berlin Wall. It's actually part of the Berlin Wall, effectively, here, which is, just on the East German side, as we now fly into East Germany, or rather Eastern Berlin, not Eastern Germany, I should say. Yeah, I mean, it's all here. The way everything is modeled and put together, and again, there's this World War II memorial as well that we can have a quick look at with our searchlight. Again, they have included a huge amount of very unique, objects, buildings to make Berlin genuinely look like Berlin. And if they've done that with all the cities, quite frankly, I think they all look extremely believable and realistic. And although not all streets are exact and all that stuff, no, that's not the point. And I've heard this a couple of times from in the comments to my review video as well, that there's like hangars are not right in some bases, and some things are missing, some things are put where they're not supposed to be. But my point is, you know what, yes, of course there's going to be shortcomings, and of course they could be improved, and of course it could be, as we have another Vopo patrolling the wall here. Of course things could be, more like they are in real life, but the reality is it's very believable. The way they've done it, it's just believable. It just fits. Everything kind of makes sense. With the exception of maybe tiny things here and there that, are absolutely not deal breakers. By the way, somebody can tell me, is this Checkpoint Charlie? I'm not actually 100% sure. The famous one from all the movies, of course, that we know. As we just continue our tour here towards these sort of ugly, horrible looking Soviet-y Khrushchev tower blocks, boxy buildings, which I know somebody got annoyed at me in the comments and said that, it's better than being homeless. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I'm not trying to be offensive to anybody that has lived or is living in these. I myself have been brought up in one of these as a kid, so I am, well aware. But I'm just saying, it doesn't make the fact that they are ugly. But in the context of this map, they are absolutely beautiful because it makes you believe that you're there. And it's just so good with all the buildings that they've done here. I just feel like I'm in Berlin. I mean, it's so cool. Genuinely, hats off to Ugra Media, and I absolutely stand by the fact that the Cola map has absolutely nothing, and I mean nothing on this map. Like, I wish I could get my money back for Cola, and I actually wish that I could pay more for this map just because of how good it is. I know that sounds stupid, but genuinely believe that the job that they've done here in every way. First of all, look how well optimized it is. We're in an extremely densely populated, packed city, and I'm recording in 4K, and somehow it's running fine. I mean, what the hell? That is just absolutely amazing. As we now approach Berlin Templehof, probably one of the most iconic airports on planet Earth, which is now a giant park. It doesn't exist anymore, but it did in the 1980s, which is what this map is based on, and they have done a brilliant job. As we have, what is this, an ambulance maybe or something? Again, these little details, I just love it. Love the attention to detail. And I know that some people have complained about the fact that they have put these aircraft there and said, you know, a lot of, well, as mission makers, you want to be responsible for placing objects and you don't want map makers to put stuff there in the clutter and whatnot. But I have a counter argument to that. I would say that actually it makes way more sense to do that, because the map makers can optimize these things, and the mission maker can delete all these objects if you so wish, without too much trouble in the mission editor. So I think it's a compromise there. One thing you'll see, it's not so obvious here at nighttime, but around the taxiways and runways, there is a lot of this kind of like sandy texture, and I think a lot of people pointed that out in the comments and in the forums before, that it doesn't really make sense. It's a little bit overdone. I agree. In daytime, it does look a little bit overdone. But you know what? Again, it's not a huge shortcoming. It's not a deal breaker. It's something that could just be tweaked and improved over time. And I'm sure Ugra Media, they have been doing that with their other maps. You know, they have been improving them and adding things and deleting things that didn't make sense. So I have full faith. But as it stands already, as we continue here towards the Mercedes-Benz factory, just look at how beautiful and well integrated everything here is. It just, nothing seems like it's out of place. Like, none of the textures make, you know, like weird shapes or you know, don't like make stupid looking cut off like straight edges with neighboring textures and things of that nature. It just, everything just looks and makes a huge amount of sense, which I absolutely love. The only problem is now, of course, I think we do have a bit of a lack of period units. If you're operating on the East German side, it's not so much of a thing, because we have all various ground vehicles and things that could fit. But for the West Germany side, I think we're really struggling. I know there's going to be an assets pack in phase 3 of this map, which hopefully, you know, will solve that issue a little bit, because it really would be great. At the moment, the only thing I have is a couple of G-Wagons from a mod, but that's about it. Otherwise, I think we are missing some period units. Another thing I wanted to mention as we are approaching the Mercedes-Benz factory, I'll just slow down a little bit just to show you the awesome detail that they have done here. And again, it's not something that they needed to, but look how well they have modeled everything. Like, inside these buildings, you know, like, you can fly inside these buildings, and you know, there's actually cars being built there. Although strangely, there are VW camper vans in this building, even though this is a Mercedes-Benz factory. But again, that's not something I'm going to be complaining about. Just the fact that they even modeled the inside of it, that you can do some stunt flying and fly through these buildings, is just absolutely phenomenal. You know, they did not need to do this whatsoever, as we have a bunch of Mercedes E-classes lined up here. And again, in here, just so cool that this attention to detail. And there's lots of different buildings and factories and in various locations and ports and things that you can just fly around and fly in through and in between. And again, I just want to point your attention to how well everything is optimized here in terms of performance. I'm just genuinely flabbergasted. We're flying over such a densely packed area, and honestly, I think the Marianas Islands map gives me more trouble. In fact, way more trouble. No question about it. You know, this is running great. I'm just so over the moon with it. One thing I did want to mention is that I think there's a few things that Ugra Media should have and maybe should include in the future, because it would be great to get some road bases for flying fighter jets out of, and I think this is a absolutely perfect map for that in particular. You know, both the east and the west side, I think, could really benefit from that. But also, I think we don't have any weapons ranges here. I mean, we do for tanks, but not for aircraft, and I think it'd be great to have some weapons ranges modeled. You know, that would just make it so much more interesting to do training and practice missions, you know, in such a realistic looking map and environment, and which is so densely packed, and it's just such a joy to fly over, that, you know, I think it would just add the cherry to the top of the cake, you know. I think if they had added that. And I also saw another comment to my video, somebody complaining about the fact that the bases are reused over and over again, a few different ones, like for example the East German and the West German tank firing or shooting ranges or weapons ranges are the same. And you know what, I actually agree with you. I think that's another area that could be improved. I think there's no need for any bases on the east and west to look the same. But you know what, overall, I think that's, again, something we can forgive them. I think they've just done a great job on integrating everything, making it look realistic, even though some of these ranges are apparently in locations which don't really exist. In fact, I think we're flying to a helipad now, which I don't think actually exists in real life, because I couldn't find it on the map anywhere, but maybe it did in the past, I'm not sure. Somebody can correct me. But again, that's not a huge deal, because if you put something in a plausible location that looks like it's plausible from the period, you know what, I'm not going to complain. So long as you don't do that all the time everywhere, but with little things like little helipads and whatnot, why not? You know, it's not a huge deal for me, and I doubt it's a huge deal for a lot of people as we now approach our landing zone, which is going to be in the middle of a forest here, which is going to be a little bit tricky, so we're going to have to concentrate on landing the OH-6. The OH-6, my favorite helicopter in DCS, of course, and I'm flying it with a force feedback stick. I haven't got the HOTAS cam today, but I'm getting all the vibrations through the stick. I'm also getting the forces when I'm trimming the helicopter, making it a hell of a lot easier to fly. And I will leave the link in the description for FFBeast. I'm thinking of making a video 1 year plus of using force feedback in DCS, and I literally couldn't go back. It's been transformational to my flying experience, and quite frankly, I think the military should invest in these things if they're training pilots at any point with VR headsets, because it can be tuned to whatever airplane you want, and even if you're not going to tune it exactly, you can get it very close. Basically almost any aircraft, depending, doesn't matter if it's a fly-by-wire or not. Obviously an F-16 is different. I know people have been asking me about the F-16. No, don't get this stick if you are flying the F-16 all the time, because an F-16 is a pressure stick, and that's different. But anything that has a conventional stick, not a side stick generally speaking, but a conventional stick, obviously something like the Gripen or whatever might be, you know, an exception, because I think that's also a pressure stick, but it's center mounted. We're just going to circle and come in on this helipad. I'm just going to kill the airspeed a little bit. We'll see if we can land on that helipad next to the Hue, which is already there. And this is the a West Berlin German base here. Just going to slow down. Be very careful. Gets a little bit twitchy sometimes in the transition, this helicopter between, there we go, between high speed and low speed. It's just going to be very gentle control inputs. But anyway, like I was saying, FFBeast, it's just absolutely insane. If you can build one yourself at home, you can order it, I think, in as a kit. And it's one, it's a lot more affordable, and two, it's going to be a lot cheaper. But otherwise, you might have to wait a while. I think there was a long lead time last I checked for getting these. But, you know, it's just so bloody good. I'm in love with it. And the developer is not paying me to promote it in any way. I'm just saying because it's just so bloody good. And I have a lot of respect for, you know, for FFBeast and just how good it is. So I'm just happy to promote it. because I'd love for more people to get into it, because then we will get better force feedback from the Eagle Dynamics for all of its and third-party modules as well, and just make it, you know, more realistic, and force them effectively to do a better job at actually giving us native force feedback, so we don't have to mess around with all the settings ourselves and looking at manuals and diagrams and flight test reports and stuff sometimes to try and figure out how to make it, you know, feel realistic in a way. So yeah, right, let's just go straight up touchdown. There we go. There we go. Got it. So, with that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little video. If you disagree with anything I said, or would like to add anything in particular, comment down below. If there's any parts of the map in particular you would be interested in seeing, or me sort of doing another tour, then please comment down below as well, and I'll see what I can do. But with that said, thanks very much for watching. Tap the like button if you could, that really helped me out. But otherwise, I'll catch you in the next video. Adios.